Hi, welcome to Kalipso tutorials. In this tutorial, we'll see how to print with Kalipso. To print with Kalipso, you can create a report in your project. We are going to create one to print a list of products. Let's call it products, save. As you can see, the type of controls available have changed, but you can work with them just like a form. Let's drag a label. Call it label title and set the text to products. Center the text and save. Let's adjust its position, add another label, call it label code, and set the text to code. Also adjust it. I'm going to duplicate it, call it label name, and set the text to name. Notice that it's a little bit hard to know the boundaries of each control. For your convenience, you can enable frames around the object. Now that we have our column headers, we are ready to print the list. To print several rows from the database, you need a looper. Let's call it looper products. A looper needs to be associated with a query. Let's create one. Call it products. Input the select, which is basically select code name from products. If you don't remember, you can always check up here where you can see the table columns. Save. As you can see, Kalipso selects it automatically. Let's also enable the header. Save. So, a looper is an area that will repeat itself for each returned record of the query. Therefore, inside the looper, we need to add necessary controls to print a record, who can occupy the height you want. I'm going to drag the two labels to the looper header. This area will repeat whenever a new page is created. In our case, I'll also add two dynamic fields. These fields are used to display dynamic values. Labels are used to display predefined or fixed values. First one will be called field code, and the content will be the query products column code. Adjust the position of the object. Let's copy and paste. Now the same thing for column name. If we leave it like this, basically each record of the query is gonna occupy the entire height, although it's only gonna print in these two fields. Finally, I'm going to adjust the size of the looper to fit the content. Let's put one final label to mark the end of the report and call it footer. We've created a continuous paper report, which means it has no height defined and you should use it to print out in continuous paper. If necessary, if you are going to print several pages, you can obviously input the page height or select from one of the predefined sizes. This is not the case, so I'm going to cancel. Now that our report is created, it's time to print it. To do it so, we need to create a printer in our project. So, project, printers, add, and you can see an extensive list of printers, but also printing languages. This means that if your specific printer isn't listed, it doesn't mean it isn't supported. For instance, if your printer supports CPL, you can select Graphic Zebra CPL. After selecting the printer type, you need to specify how to communicate with the printer. You have basically the same type of communication as in the communication profiles, plus infrared. In our example, we are going to choose PDF printer. This type has no communication, but I'm going to use it so I can show the result of the report. I'm going to call it PDF. Let's save. And the final step is to actually print the report. In our menu, let's create a button for that. I'm going to call it button print and call the print action. We begin by selecting the printer we've created, then the report. And since our printer actually creates a file, we need to specify a few more options. In details, we need to specify the file name. I'm going to save it in the project folder and call it products.pdf. I'm going to copy this value because for our convenience, I'm going to ask the operating system to open it afterwards with the shell execute action. Pass on the file and in our case, choose the action open. Save. Let's try it. Login. As you can see, it's pretty easy to use Kalipso reports. Printing images is also an easy task to achieve in Kalipso reports. For instance, you can collect a signature on the PDA screen and print it in the report. Let's start by creating a new form and call it form print. Let's copy the print button, paste it in the new form, set up the exit button, and now to collect the signature we need a draw control. Drag it, call it draw signature. Let's adjust its size and position. This control allows you to capture whatever the user writes and save it to an image file. So, before printing, we'll save the content of the control into an image file. We need the save draw action, input the file name, pfolder plus \signature.bmp. We can also specify other types since the format is automatic. Put it before the print action and save. And that's it. Now in the menu form, we use the print button to open this new form. And in the report, let's move the end label further down. Create an image control, call it image signature, and of course the file to print is the same we've defined in the save draw action. It wasn't a specific file because we were using pfolder, therefore it was an expression and you paste here the same expression. Save and let's try it. Login, print, make a signature on the screen, print, and there you have. Let's go back to the designer. Let's also change the title label in the form to signature. Sometimes it's necessary to pass information to a report. You can do that just like in a form. Let us say that we want to print the products from a family selected by the user. Let's start by the interface. Reduce the size of the draw and we copy-paste the families combo. Adjust its size and position. Also, let's copy-paste the refresh of the combo. Don't forget that when we copy controls, all the actions come with them. In this case, the table products doesn't exist, so we can delete it. Save. So our goal is to tell the report the family selected by the user. We can do that using a report variable. Just like a form, reports have their local variables and they are 100. We can go to the report properties and rename local variable 0 to in family. Now, if we check out the print action, we can see in the parameters tab that we can specify the value to pass to the variable we've just renamed or any other else. To this value, we want to pass the value of the combo. Finally, we need to change the query in the report. We no longer want to select just code and name from products. We want where family, and remember it's a like we want to do because this is the same filter that we have in the table on the products form. This is SQL Advanced, so we need single quotes and the value is the local variable in family. Save. Time to test. Login. Print. In this case it's set to all. Let's see if it works. Some signature here and we press print. And all the products are printed along with the signature. Let's close it. Let's select a family, print it again, and now we only see the products of that family. Sometimes it's necessary to print one looper inside another looper, thus printing a list of items who depends on another list. For instance, we can print a list of families and for each one a list of the products belonging to that family. You can apply the same concept if you want to print some type of document when you want to print the header and then the details of the document, all the products in that document, and perhaps the serial number of each product. We call this nesting the loopers. I'm going to start by creating a looper very much like the one we already have, but for a new query where we'll retrieve all the families. So I'm going to call it looper families, create a new query to retrieve all the families, call it query families, and select code name from families. To make it easier, I'm going to copy these fields. Now, I need to change the content of each one to the other query. And now I'm going to expand the height of this looper, and we need a new looper inside this one. So drag it, and the query who feeds it, it's very much alike the one we already have, but instead of using like, we'll use equals because we want the products equal to that specific family. So edit the query, we can copy all of this, add up a new query, paste, and switch for an equal. Call it family products. Notice that I purposely left the variable family, because you need to know which family is being printed in this moment, and you cannot access the values of the fields, for instance, where you would know the code of the current family. So what you need to do is, in the query that returns the families, you need to define a target for the column that you want. We want to be able to access the value of the column code, which is the first value. So in targets, add a target saying that value goes into the report value family and save it. This means that each time this looper makes an iteration, it stores in that variable the value of the family code. So right now, all we have to do is copy and paste the fields that we need inside the new looper. We need to set up their content. We can make it a little bit displaced to make it easier to understand the difference. Now it's just a matter of adjusting. We can even put a shape here, call it line, reduce a little bit more, and we can try it. Login, print, some signature, and now notice after the end we get the family, products from that family, the shape, another family, and so on. Barcodes are also very easy to print in Kalipso. If we want to print a barcode here at the side of the product name, we could just shrink it, add up the barcode, call it barcode products. There's a sample value just to have an image on the screen, and then you have to choose the type of barcode you want. These are all the available types. I'm going to leave it as code 128 and say that the content comes from products, column code. Save. Now it's just a matter of adjusting the size and position of the barcode. That's it. Let's try it. Print. Now you can see the barcode on each line. And of course, if you try to read this barcode, it will return 001, 002, and so on. When printing a simple label, there's an alternative printing method that you can use. I have here a file produced by a labeling software. These are CPL commands. These are the values that will print out. I was careful to input them in a way we can easily identify them in the file. For instance, if I send these commands to the printer, we would have the brackets and barcode, brackets and product code, so this actually would print out. I've placed these markers to easily identify them as the values placeholder. So we can start by copying it all and set a variable with it. Let's close the report. I'm going to give the user the ability to print it when he selects a product in this table. Let's add a new option to the pop-up. Call it print label and one more else if with the pop-up equals 3 to print the label. We need to get the product code. We also need to retrieve the product details. So select from products and we need to get the product name. Let's put it in the temporary variable 2, call it product name. Let's also get the price and put it in the temporary variable 3 with the name product price. Of course, where the product code equals the one we have on the temporary variable product code. Save. Now I'm going to send a temporary variable with the comments copied from the labels file. I'm going to save, and before we forget, I'm going to rename the temporary variable for to comments to print. And now all we need to do is replace the value placeholders with the values we want. So here, instead of barcode, we could replace this simply for the product code. Here the same thing. For the product description, we use product name. And for the price, we use the temporary variable product price. And now we can send these commands through a socket or serial communication depending on our printer. Assuming it's a Bluetooth printer, we need a serial open. I'm not going to worry about all these details because I won't be able to display to you the printing itself. So let's assume all these values are the right ones to connect to the printer. Then we would need a serial write, and text we would print out would be the commands to print. At the end, serial close. We get the product code, we get the details, we set up the commands to print, put them in a variable, open the connection to the printer, send the commands and close the connection. So, input correct parameters to connect to your printer, save, deploy and try it out. Congratulations, you've concluded the tutorial about printing.